You're listening to All Things 3D, where we talk about the world of fabricating, designing, and capturing in the third dimension.
Whoa! Mike! Whoa! Seems like I've been here before.
Yeah, I know.
Whoa! Look out!
So yes, behind me is the new Star Wars Battlefront 3. It was just released in beta for people to try out the other day.
Wow.
So I
That
just
looks
downloaded
intense.
this is video somebody else did, but man, isn't it impressive?
Wow.
And it does look like this. I played a little bit last night. They have not only a multiplayer, I think up to 64 people. Look at some of those things in there.
Whoa.
And,
yeah. So is this going to be a PC game or Xbox or what is this? What is this?
Xbox and PS4.
Wow. Impressive. Look at the graphics on these.
And then, you know, I don't have that hot of a video card, maybe like $150, $200 card, and it looks just as good on my machine. So it's pretty impressed. I'm running mine at 1080p. Looks like a movie. And, it's completely immersed. I was hoping they would have kind of like a stereo imaging function, VR. There's been some hints that that might be coming in the future, as we talked about. But we don't know at this point. But pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, can't wait to give it a whirl on my Titan X.
Oh, you got a Titan X?
Yeah, I put in a Titan X a couple months ago in my big rig, and I always like to. I'm looking forward to the new StarCraft is coming out, and so I'm looking forward to running that. I got a little gamer in me. Yeah, you know, I use it for CAD, but you know, it still comes in handy for the little game, the gaming I do, the little gaming I do.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and move into you know, our first item, which is right into our guest crasher, who's coming all the way from Israel. He says he's outside of Tel Aviv. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right to his website. This is GemSense, and the reason I know about them is that I have been looking for a multi-axis Bluetooth controller, and guess what? These guys have one. So they've got a developer kit coming to me. I have some real interesting uses for it. However, at this particular point, I will let Jonathan from GemSense give us a little bit more information, and I'll be quiet. So go ahead, Jonathan.
Welcome to the program.
Hi, I'm Jonathan. Nice to meet you guys. I mean, you guys on the air. Michael, yeah, we're in touch a bit. He's excited about what we do, and we're excited about that, really. Well, what we're really doing is we're supplying a platform. It's a small piece of hardware. Then you can basically just put in accessories or fashion or any object that you want to make it smart. As we say, we make dumb objects smart. What we help you with is eliminating the whole need of hardware expertise. Today, if you want to build a physical object that's connected to the digital environment, either in a game or an application, you need usually to get some hardware, start experimenting, then design your own, building firmware, your algorithms, software over it, and really bundling up a lot of things until you get to just dealing with the logic of what you want to do, what you really wanted to build. And that takes a lot of time and effort. And we saw that we can provide that. It wasn't easy, but we're providing it pretty easily through an SDK where basically you take our gem, as we call it, and with a few lines of code, you just get it, start getting the data in your application, and you know, you can, as I say, you can stick it on a banana and plan a monkey game, whatever.
So I'm going to jump to your website, Jonathan, and you can see it, and you can talk along with it. So essentially, here's a picture of it behind me. I mean, it's about the size of a quarter. It includes a battery behind it. You know, as we've talked over the last couple of days, currently has the ability for one switch. One of the options I'm looking for is to hook up one of those small little motor vibrators, which is in the future for it. And you know, as he's already identified, it already has an SDK for Android and for Unity. However, sadly, I need it for iOS, and however, there's going to be some options for me there as well. So I really look forward to this. So let's kind of look at the product itself. I mean, here it is, Meet Amber. In fact, I'm going to call my little device, as I'll show you a little bit later, called the Magic Amber, and I'll explain a little bit why I'm going to be calling it that. But you know, here it is, and as mentioned, Android, Windows, and Unity. Unity I'm really excited for because I'm assuming that if you use it within Unity, is that only for the Android, or can it export to iOS from Unity?
Right now we work with Android and Windows, so right now you can do both. In the future, iOS as well. We're working on it. It will take a while.
Okay.
Right now I can show you even something small that was created during one of our hackathons. Just a sec. Okay, so start it up. Okay, so I'll point my screen at it, so I hope you can see well. So this is a spindle. Do you see it? Is it in the view? Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
so basically it was 3D printed, and the guys made an app using our Unity plugin. And basically, when you spin the spindle, you can see it here, and it counts the number of spins. Can you see the app running? And you can see how it's moving along, how it's accurate, and it's a lot of fun. And this was an app that was done in a few hours, and the most of the time took to 3D print the spindle. So basically,
Jonathan, it has a gyro or a 4-axis, a 6-axis.
Yeah. What we have right now are 9-axis motion sensors. It means gyros, accelerometers, and magnetometers. And what we do is we output the information over Bluetooth to any smart device, be it a tablet, a phone, a computer, smart glasses. One of the applications we're showing now, and I'm going to show you, is this. I don't know how it fits in the picture. This is a sword that we made. And
wow.
You take our gem and basically you place it in the sword. Just a sec. Just like that. And then it becomes a smart sword. And we have a game that we made also during one of our hackathons. We really like hackathons. And, well, you can play some real virtual reality, a real sword game in virtual reality today with a gem.
So Jonathan, my question, obviously, I've already bought into it, so I'm hoping that this works. But so essentially, as you showed it with a blade, because it has 9 axes, does it also identify where it's at in space from the glasses themselves? So
it's relative to you. So basically, you calibrate at start, and then from there it tracks you in space, much like. It doesn't do absolute positioning because it's relative to you, but it feels like moving a mouse around or a cursor or whatever. It's very accurate. It's a lot of fun. And right now, we're showing some work with 2 gems, where you put one on each joint, and then you get a more realistic registering of the movement. And yeah, you'll be able to try and experiment with that. We'd love to hear your feedback. We've been getting great feedback.
I think I've upgraded to get to do that. So essentially, if I understand you correctly, and from what I've read, because it's relative, as I've already discussed with you and you've seen the videos, NEODiVR allows you to move around in the VR space by using an iOS device and the occipital structure sensor. With your Bluetooth 9-axis devices, it would allow me to move, let's say, my hands. I was planning to put them on my wrist. And then use that to determine collision detection. So literally I could reach out and touch objects in the VR world is my goal. And obviously it needs to be mobile. Oh, or a ring.
Yeah, we put it in a ring also, and we also have a model that you can 3D print at home.
Cool.
And yeah, and basically is yeah, we showed also, you can look it up on YouTube, GemSense on YouTube, and we have our videos like showing we made a lightsaber game with the ring, and people blasted stars in space using a ring. So yeah, the interaction is where we came from actually. We wanted some natural interaction with digital things, and that's where we came from. We wanted to make a ring in the beginning, and then we saw the ring is a limited use case. You can only do certain things with it, and we really wanted to. We saw that we can unleash a lot more. We thought what was the basics that you would need for wearables, and that's what we did. And the next version is going to be extensible, so you can put your your sensors for whatever application you want. And the battery, you won't have to have that battery. You could have a different size battery for fitting it in more things. Because right now the battery is, I can show you just a sec. Right now the battery is bigger than the board itself. Yeah.
And it's a 5-volt
twice
power
as big.
source or a 3.3 volt?
It's rechargeable. You get a cable with USB, and you charge it by USB.
So it's like a LiPo battery powers it.
Yeah, it's Lear battery. It's called.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a rechargeable coin battery.
Wow.
Okay.
Very,
So
very
if anybody's
cool.
interested, they have some contact information out on their website. That's how I think I got a hold of them.
Yeah, and we just opened our pre-orders, as you pre-ordered too, and we'd love to have more guys and see and hear what you guys are doing. And we're developing all the time, so we like to get feedback from developers. We have a big community here, and we're going international now. So we'd love to hear from you guys.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, Jonathan. And if you want to find out more information about GemSense, you can head over to GemSense, that's GEMSENSE.cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. I love these new domains. They're I think it's opening a whole Pandora's box. So awesome. So GemSense.cool. And we can contact you there, or as Jonathan said, you can pre-order GemSense today.
Thank you very much, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you,
All
Jonathan.
right.
I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, we'll jump right into the news.
Okay.
How's that sound, Mike?
That sounds great. Why don't you make sure you talked about my audio. Your audio also seems a little tweaked. Make sure you're on the right input. It sounds, and I noticed that when I was doing the audio portion of it. So check and see if you're
Better.
Now it's great.
Okay, cool. And all right, well, we'll jump right into the big news this week. Was Makerbot laying off 20% of its staff for the second time this year in 6 months. Makerbot having some problems. Due to market dynamics and a failure to meet ambitious goals, the company is also leaving one of its 2 buildings that it occupies in Industry City, a large-scale manufacturing complex in Brooklyn. So not real great news. Makerbot having some problems. I know they're in that class action lawsuit with users that are unhappy with their new smart head with the 5th generation machine. So they're kind of we are facing tremendous challenges at Makerbot, they even say. So I don't know. It's a rough go. I know that the market is becoming more saturated, and there definitely are some challenges out there. So what say you, Mike?
Well, what I'd like to just say is that I think the market is matured. I think you have a lot of options out there. They got into it early, and obviously they were bought out by Stratasys, who fueled them with some money. I think they hurried their next generation products that obviously had problems, and that really soured people from looking at buying their products, especially with all the other options out there. And so the other thing that I read in one of the articles is that they're now really trying to pursue the educational market, which is kind of interesting. So we're going to push the same next generation printer that has problems into the educational market. So hopefully that doesn't sour the educational market. But you know, regardless, I don't want to use any Schadenfreude here. I think they kind of accelerated too quickly, and now they're having to scale back, which, you know, probably is the direction to go. And well, we'll see what happens. Okay. Yeah. On that note, I'm going to go right into this. I was sent a little email from this company, ISG3D, and they told me that they've come out with a brand new printer that they've got on Kickstarter, which I have right here. And for whatever reason, there we go, we can play the video behind me. But essentially, it's a large platform printer. And it looks fairly nice. It's an open build. But you know, Chris, maybe you can add a little bit to this. I mean, it's nice to have such a large build like that, but don't you have some issues because you have a large build with the possibility of peeling and warping because you don't have any environment control? So, I mean, that's the thing that that struck out to me. The other thing is, you know, it still looks like, should I say, a Kickstarter project. The wiring seems a little, you know, with all these people jumping in, and the professional is kind of bumped up a little bit. This still looks like, you know, like a RepRap type printer. So, you know, at 13 or whatever the price is, $1,100 to $1,300. You know, I don't know. What's your feedback on this? Do you think it's
my feedback? I did have a chance to kind of review it on Kickstarter and take a look at it, and followed your link before the show today. And yeah, I think that it probably could achieve some pretty good results for the money. Obviously, me being a Lulzbot fan, I see some differences between the Lulzbot, where I think the Lulzbot might be a little bit more better. A little bit more well engineered. Basically, you have twice the amount of extrusion rails on the Lulzbot, which definitely adds a tiny bit of cost, not a lot of cost, but it adds dimensional stability in the long run. You know, as the printer prints, what happens is certain parts of the machines they loosen from, you know, machine vibration. You've got stepper motors. You've got two stepper motors on the Z-axis. You've got one for the X, one for the Y, and one for the extruder, at least for one extruder. So you've got that makes 5 motors per machine usually. And every time that those motors turn, they vibrate just a little bit, and that vibration can cause any hardware on the machine to kind of loosen up. And the more extrusion rails, the more hardware you have, so the more it'll kind of stay solid within spec over the long run. So I don't know. This machine looks great for the money. I mean, the build envelope, but yeah, like you said, things with like ABS and nylon, if you get real big, you can experience some warp. But there are some filaments out there that are great options. You've got things like T-glaze now. You've got things like
Max, which is what I use a lot. The
yeah, and you've got some great materials now that are being specifically formulated for additive manufacturing or FDM or FFF, and that basically are combating warping by just their properties, their properties after they're being laid down. So warping is becoming less of an issue with those materials. But if you want to print ABS or nylon, yeah, you're going to see some. You're probably going to have some warp issues. But you know, I don't know. We'll see.
You made a point, Chris, about the dual Z-axis stepper motors there. You know, I didn't really think about it, but they've got to be in sync. They both have to move in parallel.
Yeah, they usually come off the same driver on the board.
Okay. But regardless, there's still two mechanical components. So if you don't have them exactly matched, you know, you could have some angular disfigurement, or whatever you want to call it, changes in there. So, you know, maybe I don't know how many are on the Lulzbot, but I don't know. That could be an interesting. I can see why they would want to do it for stability, but then you have to control two stepper motors and make sure they're in sync. So let's look at the Lulzbot in comparison. You've got the Lulzbot 4, correct? And
Lulzbot 5. Well, I've upgraded it to a 5.
okay. So how much did that cost you? Let's use that in comparison.
I think it's a $2,300 printer, and so you could order a Lulzbot TAS 5, and you can have it in a week. So that's another thing that's kind of hard with Kickstarter nowadays. I saw somebody was asking about filaments this morning on Reddit and asking for input, and I saw some people were giving some really good feedback. It's really hard to pledge money to a already saturated product, to a product that's not necessarily novel in any way. It's hard to pledge money to it and basically kick the can down and maybe get a product 6 months from now when you can order the same thing for the same amount of money and get your product tomorrow. So it's really hard to justify. Some of these Kickstarters, I think, are maybe a little unrealistic. You know, I could see if it offered something totally novel and it was like a totally new thing. And I'm not trying to bash these guys. I think anybody that's doing any research and working on these kinds of projects and tinkering and in the maker movement, I can't say enough good things about it. I'm just being realistic. You know, it's like it's hard for a guy like me to throw money at something like this when I know there's an alternative that I could have tomorrow.
No, and that's the key, is that now that we have these more mature markets, don't forget we've got CME, CNC that's in there with some mature products, and you know, my Makerbot M2 is a mature product. There are some other, and then we've got the big boys. I mean, obviously Makerbot, we just kind of diminished them a little bit earlier, but I think they have improved the areas that were weak, but they're also expensive. So, you know, I guess the key thing here is that for $1,000 less, you get a wide bed 3D printer, but as you said, it's unproven. It's a Kickstarter. Obviously, I've already been burnt twice on Kickstarter. And if you remember the Castle Clear, which we finally got together, but that was a little bit of a nightmare. So I have to agree with you, Chris. You know, it's kind of hard now with a more mature 3D printer to kind of make this move. But you know, the reason I brought this up is that it is an option, and if you want to save some money and you're willing to spend some effort and time in probably having to tune it up, it might be something to look at.
Yeah, and I think again the kit thing is actually a really valuable lesson to be learned for anybody that's getting into 3D printing. For me, my kit I've already built a couple kits, so I've already gone through the exercise. I don't really ever plan to do it again until maybe there's an SLS kit on the market. I mean, I've done an SLA kit, I've done some FFF kits now, but the pre-packaged ready to print machines now that are on the market are great, and you pay a little bit more to have it pre-assembled, but they're assembled in a kind of like your car is assembled. You know, your car is assembled on an assembly line where there's a guy that has 4 operations or whatever, and he's going through, and his work is being QC'd by another. If it's a good assembly line manufacturing process, there's somebody QCing his work, his or her work, and you know, if you have your mechanic work on your car, it's questionable whether they'll ever get the car exactly the way that the factory ever did. That's why it's better to just have a factory brand new car or whatever, you know, for the most part. And I think the same is said for any mechanical device. Is coming off an assembly line is always going to be a little bit better than a mechanic putting together a car. So so that's just my take on it.
Yep, but another good point is that it is inexpensive, but you are going to be taking chances. But not to take away from them, if you head out to Kickstarter and look up the Elevan 3D printer, you can go out there and either back them or even go out there and pledge to get one.
And okay, please do. Please do. Okay, into our next item.
On the next item.
Now this is on the novel side. This I had to share. So Rockprint, an architectural installation at the inaugural Chicago Architectural Biennial 2015. This was just posted. You got to take a look at this. So you can actually find this if you search Rockprint 3D, if you Google it. These guys here are building this printer at the installation, and they're using textile fabric. They're feeding textile fabric out of a little robot arm. And you'll see them kind of build this machine. Here they build a scaffold. So for those of you listening, they're building this big structure scaffold thing. And it's got these, so they're putting it together, and they're basically building a big, and then they have a multi-axis arm here. And it shows them zipping it together and kind of, so then they put some sort of feed mechanism that feeds recycled textile thread out of this, so here it is, it's laying down a string of, just a string of cotton fiber, cotton polyester, I think. It's a recycled textile fiber. Have you seen this, Mike?
I haven't.
Okay.
Attention.
Okay, watch this. Okay, so it's laying down these layers, and so then they build one section of wood up, and if you're just listening, you got to go, when you get to the computer and you have a minute, check it out. Check this out, Rockprint. It's actually a very novel idea. It's one of the most novel things I've seen in a little while. So then they make these weird patterns, and then they come in by hand. You know, it's by hand for now, and they lay down a layer of rocks. Then the thing comes in, and it's a continuous fiber, and they lay down, well, it was continuous. Then they lay down more rocks, and they're putting together this whole thing, and they're laying down basically a pattern of string, and then laying down rocks, laying down string, laying down rocks, and that's basically your Z height. And you'll see them here, and they build it all the way to the top, 13 feet high. Okay, so we're talking thousands of pounds of rocks here. And it basically holds these little pebbles together, and it's a principle that MIT has been working with. And so watch this. So it's for the most part, these pebbles are actually being held together. Then they scrape this off with this, you know, the staff is in here scraping it off, and you'll see here, it actually makes a sculpture, and they're thinking about using this in architectural applications. And all it is string and rocks, no glue, nothing else, and it's super strong. They say it can withstand, you know, I mean, obviously to withstand even that top load has to be. So they're working with ETH Zurich and MIT have put this together. And you can check out, here's some pictures.
Yeah, I didn't see this, but I do remember reading an article, and essentially this is based upon, is it ant hills, but actually using nature and how they actually develop the structures that they have there, which I guess is a very similar. So it's interesting how, again, we're going back to nature, and the process is done by insects and other things in order to create these, as you can see, very natural, very strong sculptures. So,
wow.
Thanks,
and
Chris.
It's born out of according to this article on RoboHub, it's born out of a 2012 University of Chicago conference that brought architects, engineers, material scientists, and physicists together. Rockprint demonstrates a principle called jamming that refers to an aggregate granular materials like gravel that are quite literally crammed together in such a way that they hold their form and shape like a solid, even though their molecular properties are closer to a liquid substance. So very interesting. You can go find out more at robohub.com, and you can see some more pictures. And God, I want to make it out. I mean, I have no excuse to ever go to Chicago, but this would be an excuse to go. Just to see one of these.
Well,
very cool.
Boy, you've kind of... Mine is another one of those. China creates the world's largest 3D printer.
Yeah. Wow.
So
pretty amazing.
The Vulcan, the world's largest 3D architecture structure, was recently unveiled in Beijing Design Week 2015. Let's see, I think that's kind of like humans down there in the bottom there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's all we've got. But if that's the case, that's a pretty big ass 3D print. So
Are you sure they're not making these on a little spot and then photoshopping these people
it
in?
says here it is: 20 large-scale 3D printers were used to complete the assembly, and then they assembled it again. So, as we talked about before, they use large 3D printers, they make the pieces, and then they assemble it. So this isn't like some huge Godzilla-type 3D printer that they put together. This obviously.
It was put together in sections, but still pretty cool.
Yeah, they're creating these huge objects. So, you have to break the 3D models apart in order to build them separately and then combine them. But, I'm reading a book right now about China, and one of the Chinese themselves kind of make fun of the fact that they've got to have the largest and the biggest and all this because, they want to make sure that people are aware of that they're capable of doing things. So I think
Careful what you say, Mike. Careful what you say. You might disappear in the night. Just careful what you say.
I doubt it. No, I mean, but the whole point is another thing I read in the book too, which is kind of funny, is that I guess Home Depot tried to set up Home Depots in China, and it didn't really work out when they first started, which I guess was back, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago, because there wasn't much of a DIY.
Oh, DIY.
Yeah. But I just read lately that they're really starting to work for it. In fact, it's not in this item, but actually I'm working with somebody out of China because they are actually creating little hacker and maker type locations. So it is becoming something. But it was kind of funny that Home Depot, when they first went over there, they really couldn't get a foothold because why do you want to DIY? Because there's guys out there with signs that say, hey, I can do that for you. So
right.
It's kind of interesting. Oh, well, on to your next item, Chris.
Awesome. Next up, we are going into the scanning side of things. And
aren't we in 3D medicine?
Yeah, I did. I kind of had the same. We could just touch on yours.
Okay, let's. So essentially, this has been in the news. It's been in the news for a couple of weeks, but essentially, this article does a good job of talking about, again, how 3D printing has been used by surgeons to allow the practice surgery, I guess. So they were able to print this 4-year-old's heart and then determine the type of surgery. And if you go ahead and read through the article, pretty much it says that by able to 3D print it, the surgeon actually had the ability to determine that what normally may have been the left or right, you'll have to read the article, he switched the decision on where he was going to go in through the operation. And supposedly that helped ensure that the operation was a success. And here he says, aha, insight, instead of making an incision on the left side, he made it on the right side. So, again, the fact that you can put something in front of somebody, and, surgery obviously is a very tactile. I've never done surgery, but I'm assuming it is. You have something there. And but to be able to actually take an identical model of the person you're going to be performing the surgery on, I think it's extremely important. And if you remember Chris, I'm the guy who saved his wife's eye, life, and soul. No. But Dr. Gardner, the neurosurgeon that operated on my wife, wrote me an email the other day commending me on the TEDx talk, but then said, by the way, we're now looking at using a 3D printer here. What would you suggest? So I thought that was kind of cool that the hospital that I introduced him to 3D printing is finally
going to get one.
Be buying one. And I think this article identifies that there's like 75 hospitals in the United States, 200 worldwide, that had 3D printers from Stratasys. And I mean, that's just the larger end. Obviously, that doesn't talk about the smaller end that are experimenting with it. So, and what they do identify here is before it was made, used mainly to create prototypes of surgical tools, but now we're actually seeing it to create simulated organs. So, again, I think is kind of cool. Obviously, I was involved almost from the beginning with this back in early 2014, and it's become very widespread. And I just had a gentleman who works for University of Alabama in the. He's not actually a doctor, but he works in organic or something. I can't remember. Whose wife also had a meningioma and contacted me to find resources, and is also going to Dr. Gardner. So it's kind of cool on how this is all going back. But yeah, we're just seeing more and more of, not necessarily the 3D printing of tissue yet, because as we talk with the people from Rice University, that's still a few years off. But using plastics and pliable materials is really creating the capabilities that we've never had before. Okay, so now on to our scanning item, Chris.
All right, and next up we have a little preview from the Maker Faire that's coming up here, right? Maker Faire is coming up in New York. It's my understanding.
Sure, I guess.
That's my understanding, and this is coming from last week, but something that I missed was the Eora 3D scanner.
Yes, I've actually covered it a couple times already, and they're going to be on our show. One?
This is the one that we did. So here's a little demo of it, and I saw the demo, and I thought you touched on this last week.
Touched on it last week. Touched on it when you weren't here.
Yeah,
and then it's a hot little item.
And then it uses your phone and a turntable, and it's making incredible little 3D scans. And it apparently can scan objects as big as a 3 by 3 foot, and it's a really affordable device. I think it's under $300.
It's about $300, and a little more insight on it. Let me jump to my own screen. Well, go ahead and keep it, run it back up if you have the link to them. It's going to be a Kickstarter, and we're hoping to have them on right before the Kickstarter or right after it. They are actually showing it at the Maker. But what's really nice about that, and both of us have built prototypes, kit forms, but essentially they've all been based on webcams. Well, webcams have maybe 1080p at the most. Well, now if you're using an iPhone with now the 12 megapixel cameras, that really enhances the ability. Now, another thing, and I kind of discovered it, they went with a green laser. And the reason you would want to go to green, I mentioned this in a previous show, is that green actually is the most sensitive color for the sensors in these cameras. So that's why you have green screens instead of blue screens, because video in RGB cameras, that is the most sensitive wavelength. So it gives you the cleanest, the least amount of noise. So hats off to them, because I had experimented with that as well. And it looks like they've just kind of put together a great little package, and I'm really excited about it, and really excited to have them on, and really excited to back them as soon as it comes out. Like I said, this is the year of portable 3D. So on that segue, no, I don't have a segue yet. Well, that'd be fun. That's what I'm going to write in on one the next time. A virtual segue. Hey, I'm going to do that. Okay, my next item. So another product that I just got, actually I got it a couple of weeks ago, but I had lost it because...
It's so small?
It's so small. So,
wow, that's the new Realsense.
This is the R200, and the reason it's called the R is for rear, but essentially this allows you to scan objects, and here it is. That's it. It has actually, wonder where they got the idea from, magnets in the back. I actually added another one, but it has a magnet and a little plate that you can attach and magnetically hold it in place. But this is it. It's lightweight. I'm assuming if you pull this panel off, even though they show only the RGB camera, there are two other infrared cameras and a projector in it, and they use stereo to provide not only to provide the depth information. So it kind of makes it a little less immune to ambient light. So this thing can actually be used outdoor. I haven't tried it yet. Their SDK is out there. It still doesn't have the ability. I think you can obtain depth information, but you can't actually, the app for scanning is not there yet. But what's cool is because this is so small, and let me jump back to my main screen here. Here it is. Because it's so small and lightweight, I'm looking at a possibility of doing this. Doing something similar to what I'm doing with the structure sensor, but this is also being built into tablets. In fact, I will jump right into it, but what I've got on my screen right here is the Intel Realsense developer kit. It is $99, so it's very inexpensive. And you know, you can get an SDK and run it on Windows. There's supposedly going to be Android in the future. The only caveat, it is USB 3 only. So you have to have a USB 3, and they suggest a 4th generation Intel processor. So you have to have a BP machine. And my thinking on this is that all these streams, these cameras is all combined. And all the processing is done not in the device itself. That's probably why it's so lightweight, but it's done in the computer itself. So, you know, that means I don't see this really becoming a very small package because of the amount of processing that's required for it, but who knows? One of the nice things about the structure sensor is that it does provide a kind of a what do you want to call it? A compiled output that can be usable, the depth information that is not available in this. So this is kind of raw information here, but it is inexpensive. It is being built into this laptop, and I think it's a neat laptop because it kind of takes after the Surface, and it's going to be a little less expensive, starting at $799. But one of the things when I was going through this, I saw it, I think, on an Engadget first, is it says, and again, it didn't bring much attention to it, but us 3D geeks, where does it say it? Also, it uses a Wacom or Wacom pen with 1024, I think, pressure sensitive. So those of you who have been Wacom or Wacom would be very interested. Here it is, the Intel Realsense 3D camera on the back. Yeah, kind of like a small little item. So this little sensor is built into it. So kind of cool. So if you're looking at getting something that is Surface-like, like the Windows Surface, which by the way was just mentioned or announced earlier this week, the Surface 4. This is a cool one. It's a 1080p. It seems pretty nice, lightweight, and very reasonable. And the $899 includes the keyboard, which is not the case with the Surface 4. So, you know, some people are thinking that HP, Dell would all have to push up their game after their Microsoft. Well, it looks like they have. So this might be the one that I might be getting. Obviously,
yeah, and I noticed. I don't know if this is the same thing, but the I love these little Intel nukes. Intel has these little. They're basically a Mac Mini competitor, and their nuke stands for it's NUC for Next Unit of Computing. And these things blow me away. You can get them as cheap as like $120 Amazon Prime or $140, and like this one's got a 4th generation i3. You can get them with the 5th generation i7 now, all the way up. But this one claims to have some sort of consumer infrared sensor in it. So I don't know what that sensor is, but I wouldn't be surprised if it had. I don't know if infrared sensor is for a remote or
I think it's just for a remote to use it kind of like a what do they call them? I want to say HECP, but those little home units for video, multimedia stuff. I agree. I've actually got 2 of those. I got the earlier Nook, as I thought it was pronounced, and actually did make, and I called it the Micro. You know how they have the Mac Mini? Well, I call it the Mac Micro. And I brought it to one of my developers meeting, and I told him, I said, this is the new, you know, they haven't released it yet, but then I put like an Apple logo on it, and I made it into a Hackintosh, and it was fairly easy to do. And I actually had a Hackintosh Mac Mini, and this was like 3 years ago when they first came out. So I thought that was really neat. Gigabyte also makes versions of this, and that's what I have. That's what I run my on my workstation for my 3D printers. Like you said, they're low cost. You can strap those right on the back. They got a VESA standard adapter on them, right on the back of an cheap LCD panel, and you've got an all-in-one. So very versatile. In fact, I just sent my nephew my old Intel i3 version of that. So yeah, very, very cool. A lot of exciting stuff that's been announced, and sadly, I don't have enough money for all of it. So if any of you out there
Yeah,
want to
next
provide
one,
some
the
money.
big
Okay,
one this
so
week, right?
yeah, on to your next item, and while you bring that one up, I will bring up my little image of it. So this is the one that they were showing off. They were actually showing off a demo, and one of the things that I want to talk about. So Chris, go ahead and talk about a little bit. And then
All right,
talk about
Microsoft announced today or day before yesterday the pricing and release schedule for their dev kits for the HoloLens. We're all looking forward to it. They're saying sometime in Q1 of 2016 for around $3,000, and they did a little demo wearing it. Some say it's on the high side. It's definitely way more expensive than the Oculus dev kit, but it's Microsoft. It's a totally new technology. You pay to play, early adopter wise. $3,000. I know it seems like a lot, but compared to other displays out there and new hardware technologies, to me, for a dev kit, doesn't seem unreasonable. It doesn't seem unheard of. When you're looking at a dev kit to actually develop for the Xbox, you're looking at in the tens of thousands of dollars range. So, this is kind of, I think the $3,000 probably covers some support, and you definitely pay to be an early adopter. So what say you, Mike?
Well, I'm the counterpoint behind this. I put this together, and it's actually the little image that I put out for our episode today. Dollar signs coming out in that game there. In my opinion, is a little steep. And the reason I say that is that the Oculus Rift, when it came out with its developer kit, was $300 or $350. Very reasonable. Now, obviously, there's more technology involved in this, but they also did this with their Connect 2. I also bought into that. And I feel that if they people to embrace this, they need to take a loss on this. And that's just my opinion. I think $1,000 would have been an excellent price. I would have bought into it. $3,000 is a little bit steep for me. So that kind of identifies your market. Some of the more, in my opinion, creative entrepreneur type developers also don't have a lot of, so I mean, who's going to be really using this? Is it going to be, here we show all these entertainment home type games, but who's going to be marketing for this? Now, some people, let me just finish one more.
Oh, go ahead.
Some people have identified that, well, if you become a developer for the Xbox or even the Sony PS4, you have the same issue. You're paying even more, $5,000 to become a developer for that. And my point to that is, okay, that needs to stop too. If you want the creative indies to come into this, that's why Unity 3D provides a free version of it. That is why the UDK or the Epic Unreal Development Kit is free now, because they realize to get people to learn how to use it, you got to provide a free version. And then if you make a lot of money, then you can go in and pay your royalties back to them. So I think, maybe this thing cost $5,000 and they're selling for a loss. I don't know. But, I'm glad personally, because I have a little product called NEODiVR that just give me a little more time to talk about it later on. Okay, back to you, Chris.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is aftermarket research. I think they know that it's a buzzworthy product. I think they know that there's probably already a really high demand for it. I mean, I want one, but they do need to limit. I mean, I think one of the things that Oculus has struggled with is, especially in the beginning, was putting out a polished dev kit. That was the Rev 1 dev kit. Definitely was not super polished and left a lot to be desired. I owned mine for a short term. It had really limited hardware on it for the amount of money, and the first gen kind of made a lot of people sick. And it was it was definitely a good way to get your feet wet, and it broadened all of our horizons as far as VR. But I think this is going to go above and beyond what and I think it's the $3,000 price point is probably selected mostly to keep serious developers as the
3,000, Chris.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
3,000.
That I think it's meant. I think it's 3,000. I think it's meant. The price point's meant to keep only developers buying it in the beginning, and then when the consumer version comes, I'm sure it'll be a lot more affordable.
Well, my point is, I don't think so. Microsoft has a tendency to put these kits out and the final versions at sometimes an exorbitantly high price, and a lot of people don't buy into it. The other thing that you need to keep in mind is that when people have actually tried this, even though they show these great demos, these demos are kind of misleading. You do not have this full 360 range. It essentially, imagine a slit in front of your eyes. That's what you're looking through. You're not seeing this wide expansive field. So it's been very misleading. One of the things maybe that has changed with the latest version, if you look at the news, they're going to be going around to all the major cities like San Francisco, Seattle, LA, New York, and you can go and actually try this out for yourself. So I think they've already realized that they've gotten some negative response on the high price, especially from people talking about the limited view range. But if that has been changed, I wished I lived in one of those cities. Maybe I'll find a reason to go up there. I would like to try it, because if it is larger, then I would see investing in it, because they've really, in my opinion, I've put a lot of work. I've talked to somebody who is part of the team, and he's actually gone off and done his own spin-off. So Microsoft is really good in creating development kits and working with people. So, okay, even though I wish it was cheaper, I may have to go sell some blood or something. Okay, well, on that note, let's move right into another VR corner in a round room, and that's this next item here, which, oops, I kind of jumped ahead. One of the things that, do you remember Oitoy that we had on before? They created what they call a light camera system, which essentially, with multiple cameras, takes a lot of images of a room to provide almost a three-dimensional mesh that you can literally walk around and still have three-dimensional information. Well, how is that different from standard GoPro VR camera type systems where you have a spherical image? Well, the problem is they're flat. You're only seeing a flat surface. So these new techniques allow you to actually capture it. So this particular company, let's see if we have, actually I have a little video that I can show. Let me see where it's at. Well, here it is. Okay, so I'll bring this up. This is the little video. Do we have audio?
Whoa. I could see where this is going.
Yeah. Yeah. So they stopped. Some people complain.
We want what we see.
But essentially, this is the VR room, or this is the captured system. And is that it in the background there? But then obviously there is an actual person there as well. So that might be the actual system. But it's captured this whole thing. And I don't know if it's real time, but obviously it's a recording that actually captures the motion as well. So what, again, we're only looking at it from our view, but if we actually had the camera system on, we could be able to go into this and walk around kind of like with my system, except actually have real video images versus just the cartoonish 3D gaming stuff. Even though the last demo I showed was pretty cool with the Van Gogh, this obviously is neat. And I tried to find more information about this company, and I couldn't find anything. So I don't know, what do they call themselves? Do we have a name here? Yeah. Well, I looked it up and couldn't find anything yet. So they kind of talk about the status of VR right now, and that if you really want to have full three-dimensionality, you normally have to go to a gaming engine. So this could be a game changer. Obviously, Otoy is working on something similar to that. And then also, if you're familiar with another company which created the Lytros still camera, they're looking at applying it for VR as well. So we've got 3 different types of items in order to improve or create multi-dimensional interactive environments that are based upon the real world. Okay, your item, Chris.
All right, well, we are into the special section, and I need to move fast because I'm going to turn into a pumpkin pretty quick here. Section for today is Print Whisper. Super simple Wikipedia iterative design as a design methodology based on cyclic process of prototyping, testing, analyzing, and refining a product or process. Based on the results of testing the most recent iteration of a design, changes and refinements are made. This process is intended to ultimately improve the quality and functionality of a design. In iterative design, interaction with the design system is used as a form of research for informing and evolving a project as successive versions or iterations of a design are implemented. So today's tip, super simple, iterate, iterate, iterate. That's what all the engineering courses teach you. That's what 3D printing is here for, is don't be afraid to make more versions. Don't be afraid to experiment with new ideas and iterate your design. Don't settle for something that's not perfect. I mean, obviously, perfect is very subjective, and you'll get to a point where you're 99.9%, and you can continue refining on later and make another version. But that's what 3D printing lets you do, is iterate. So don't forget to do it. Don't forget to just try something, print it out for form and fit, and then even if it's the smallest change of 0.01 millimeter, whatever it is, 1/10 of a millimeter, 100th of a millimeter, don't forget to iterate.
Thank you, Mr. Print Whisperer. Okay, well, on to my items, spelunking in the tech cave. Essentially, as Chris has been aware of, because he helped develop the first prototype, I went ahead and created the second prototype, and still working on the final component, but here you go.
Whoa.
So I have my optics. Now this is the acrylic version of it, but I have a full glass version coming in. So there you go. This is 41 millimeter lenses. So the same thing that's in the new Oculus Rift DQ2 with a 40 millimeter FOV. So what you'll be able to, or focus, I'm sorry, focus line. And so essentially the whole objective behind this, and why I call it the loop, the only thing that's missing is the eye cups. And how can I say this? What do you want to call it? Family friendly. So I've been looking for something that is, what do you want to call it? Very pliable, made out of silicone, that is a nice ring. So I'll let your imagination kind of figure where I came up with a product that will fit the dimensions of the ring size that I'm looking for. And I was hoping that would be here today or yesterday, but it did not come, so I'll have to show it again. But like I've shown before, I also use something called a super sticky material. And it fell off.
That'll go in the bloopers.
Yeah. So essentially, it holds it securely, but I've been using it for a while. And the problem with sticky stuff is you have to wipe it off after a while. But because of that, I've also provided a rubber band security system.
Oh, that's a cool way to do it.
And so that will provide even more. And then if you notice, there are some little hooks here. So that way it keeps it on secure. So if you get really active, it won't come off, and it's very simple. These are just standard rubber bands. I'm going to have one that's more of little eye loops and then a little thicker so that'll keep it more secure. It also has little band loops here. So with the larger cups that are in front of it, you can literally attach it to it and have a headset. So, and I actually took it off, but the newer version has a thicker, because I found that these were a little too thin and also a little wider, so it'll fit a 1-inch strap. And I'm also, they haven't come in, but regular cups that go on the outside of this, like that, so that you can keep the edges from getting any, and that'll be an option. So essentially, with great optics, 41 millimeter lenses, you have the field of view that's about as good as anything else out there. I'm looking at, once this goes to injected molding, for about $25 at most. But that's not the real reason. Obviously, I think this is a cool product, but I'm going to launch this on Kickstarter, not necessarily for this, but if you buy this, you're really going to be buying into this here. As you know, last week I worked with, or 2 weeks ago, with the Shriners group, and I showed them VR, and they really were very interested on what could be done with it. So I've created this little product that you see here in front of you. Let me see if I can go back into it. That I call the NEODiVR Junior. And essentially it's going to be bright, cheery colors. And if you remember our guest crasher today, look at the bottom of this, Chris. Do you see the little bracelet? Guess what goes on that little bracelet? That's the magic amber. So a child can put this on their wrist and be able to interact with the objects on the screen. Obviously, very large donut shapes to be comfortable against their eyes. And it's made specifically for the iPod Touch, which is a very inexpensive device. You don't actually have to have a cell phone. You can get one of those for about $200. So I'm hoping to work with Apple and see if we can do this. So my goal is, if you buy one of the loops, the money that you're paying for that is going to go into buying one of these for a Shriners hospital. And so that's my objective. So it'll contain the case and the little grip, and then obviously optional. So here's the front view of it. There's the side view. And then there's the back.
Beautiful,
So
Mike.
very easy. And again, it's got the little side loops. So if you
kid friendly,
kid friendly, you know, and I was hoping to have it today, but we'll have to hold off to next week. Mattel finally released their VR Viewmaster, or VR Master, or whatever they're going to call it. People are liking it, but I think, you know, there needs to be options. This, I think, will be very kid-friendly and user. And as I mentioned, my whole goal here is to provide the hospitals. I just got feedback yesterday that this particular, they had tried out my NEODiVR limited value edition glasses with a child who was having some real issues in being fitted for the materials. Obviously, another child that was severely burned. They put this in front of him, and he was playing with dinosaurs, and he said he was very cooperative and he was a very happy child. And that kind of brought tears to my eyes, because that's been really my goal, is how can we make these children who are suffering, obviously, more comfortable, and to know that this is actually being applied is very, very cool. So that's about it, Chris, on my end. I do want to say one more thing. And actually, let me, I want to show this real quick, so give me a moment. Okay. So today is somebody special's birthday, and I had created this for her. Can you see it?
Yeah.
And I put this in Facebook, and she was very, very upset with me. And I don't know why. I think it makes her look very strong and attractive. But I call it Queen Siobhan, or Siobhan in Gaelic. So happy birthday, honey. Okay.
Very
so
nice.
With that, I think I'm going to just play a little bit more of Battles of... So on that note, Chris, and sign us off.
All right. Well, thanks to our listeners. Thanks for Jonathan for coming on our program earlier from GemSense. And we learned a lot. And we will see you next week on another All Things 3D.